Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the How Did You Learn to Do That podcast. Thank you so much for coming back this week. I'm so excited to share another great episode and another amazing and inspiring story with you. I have Emma Clarke joining me today to talk about her experience of making the big jump from a career to creating her own business and all that comes with that. And in the meantime, I just wanted to share that I would love if you could subscribe to us on YouTube, as well as like us on Instagram and follow us along on all our podcast platforms that we're on. And if you could share with your family and your friends to help us grow, that would be amazing. And I know it is in the middle of summer, so I hope you've had some great memories and some time to reflect and just hang out at the park or the beach and just journal and get to know yourself a little bit and connect with yourself as well. So I'll get started. I'll invite Emma on and then we'll share her story. So let me know if you have any questions. And if you have anyone that you'd like to nominate, like always, please reach out to me and let me know and I can get them onto the podcast. Thank you. Okay, hi everyone. I'd like to welcome Emma Clarke, who will share her story this week on our podcast around how she took the jump from her career as a certified dental assistant into running her own successful business. So I'm excited to have her here and join me in sharing her story.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to share all of this. It's amazing.
That's amazing. So for those of you that don't know, Emma Clarke was born and raised in Manchester, England, and she moved to the Fraser Valley when she was 9 years old. After high school, she had found a career in the dental industry as a certified dental assistant and treatment representative. She retired in 2014 after 12 years of work in the industry and after having two sons, Oliver and Owen, who are now 9 and 7. Beautiful Bright Smile, which is her company, was formed in January 2015 as a mobile teeth whitening service. This was to help financially and to have social interaction with adults. I can totally relate to having the social interactions with adults right now.
Isn't it hard?
Yeah. Combining her dental knowledge with a beauty treatment, it became her mission to provide a pain-free service that many others had tried before with little success or after treatment sensitivity. She started to research what causes enamel pain and why some enamel types are tougher to brighten than others. And during that time, she created the Academy, which trained beauty studios how to perform instant teeth whitening safely and effectively. Over that 2-year period, she had trained over 150 amazing businesses. And now she has Beautiful Bright Smiles trained technicians across Canada, in the United States, Greece, New Zealand, and Australia. In 2018, the next adventure of developing a line of at-home teeth whitening solutions began for her, and she is so thrilled to now have a range of professional at-home kits that are carried in dental offices, offered through dental distributors, medi-spas, and through e-commerce sites. And they have high-performance serums and chemical-free products and are launching a new tooth gloss in this summer. She still answers every customer's question and offers free consultations with herself for customers to find the perfect teeth whitening solution for their enamel type. She also still offers teeth whitening appointments with herself, which is the most amazing way to connect with clients and still a huge passion of hers. And so that's so amazing. And I would love to have Emma share her story of how she went from being a certified dental assistant to being an international businesswoman.
Well, I'm tired just listening to all of that because it sounds like a lot. But yeah, we can start from the beginning. I grew up in England. I think that gives me more of a dry, cynical sense of humor. I don't know if it has anything to do with business-wise, but it's definitely a big part of who I am. It's hard sometimes because I look Canadian, speak Canadian, but I definitely have that British side to me. So I don't know if that kind of gave me a little bit of balls to do anything, not too sure. But after high school, I will completely admit this. I mean, I think I have undiagnosed ADD or something. My grades were not fantastic in high school. But when I was passionate about a subject, so it was like foods and nutrition, I would get an A plus. Put me in history, I was getting, a C minus. And I think they were just like chugging me along because they didn't want to see me fail. So grades, not fantastic. So your options when you're coming out of high school is do you go to do general studies? What do you do? And I saw an ad one day in a newspaper. Actually, I think it was my mom, and she's like, it was for the dental reception program. I'll be completely honest. The only reason it would kind of intrigue me is because right in the ad, they were like, you can start at like $18 an hour. And at the time, I was working as a shoe salesman. I was like Al Bundy from Married with Children. And I was like, okay, well, let's go check this out. It was an evening course. I was able to work during the day, go to the course at night. And lucky for me, you didn't need to have great grades to get in there. So I started the course and I excelled at it. I did really, really good. And I was like, I kind of like learning about teeth. I kind of, almost made me feel kind of like a dentist. So I did that course, and then I worked in the dental industry as like a receptionist treatment coordinator for about 5 years. But I was always kind of like poking my head in the back. I'm like, what are they doing? That looks cool. I want to be holding the suction with, getting the saliva. So I then would work during the day as a dental receptionist and go to night school at Douglas College. And so I had really busy, long days. And, I upgraded some of my high school subjects in that time, and I became a certified dental assistant. I loved it. It was so fun. I was very fortunate in that I worked at a sedation office where we were doing like full mouth reconstruction. Like it was really cool. We were doing like really big things, and it was a fun job. It was challenging, and I loved that so much. In between all of that, the years are going by. I meet my now husband, Jeff. We get married, and then we started having our children, our two boys. And after we had our second son, my current boss at the sedation office actually retired. And so I was kind of looking for a new job, but also trying to raise my two boys. And you make decent money as a dental assistant, but my entire paycheck was going to daycare. And I was like, do I want to work like 8 to 10 hours a day, go pick up my kids, and not really be bringing home any money and just paying for the daycare? And I wasn't really loving the new avenue in dentistry because I went from doing, really cool major stuff in the sedation office to then working just more like, like a filling here and there, root canal here and there. And I just found like my passion was wavering a little bit. So I actually took that time to retire from dentistry for a little bit to see what I wanted to do. During this whole time, I ran into someone that I used to work with at a dental office, and she had since become a photographer and started her own blog. And I remember bumping into her at Costco, and she was just glowing. And she had children too, and she's like, I just love that I have my own schedule, and I can be with my children and raise them. I can work in the evenings and on the weekends, and she had more financial freedom, and she was really successful. And I just thought, man, like I was jealous. Like I'm not gonna lie, I was like, I want that. I'm the type where I'm like, I'm not gonna rely just on my husband's paycheck. I want to be bringing something in because, if I want to go get something, I don't, I want to feel like I contributed and got it. So I then started thinking, I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? And I was like, should I become like a Tupperware sales rep? For Stella Dot was really popular at the time. And I was just like, I don't know, like, I don't know if that was for me doing that whole sales route. And then I was speaking with someone I used to work with. We were both dental assistants at the sedation office. And we're like, well, what about teeth whitening? Because we noticed, some tanning salons were offering it. And I was like, we could do that and we'd be awesome because we performed hundreds of them in the dental clinic. And so that's really what kind of got me motivated into thinking about starting my own business. There was a huge decision to be made though, because in British Columbia, I couldn't hold on to my dental license and do the teeth whitening business at the same time. I had to make a choice there. So my retirement was going to be permanent if I took this avenue. And so I did. I gave it up and kind of put all my eggs in this basket, and there was no turning back, because to go back and get your license again, you have to do all the schooling again and take the test, and that would be a really long, long road. So my main factors for wanting to start was the flexibility of being with my boys, being there. I'm also a crazy psycho mom, and I, wanted to be there for all those moments, and wanted to make sure that I was always around for them. So they were my motivators, and they gave me the confidence to do that. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I came about to starting the business.
Yeah, and I can completely relate to wanting to be there for every of all those moments of your child's life. And that's exactly where I'm at too now, trying to build this podcast so that I could be there for every moment that my daughter has and not feel like I'm missing out because for me it would be meetings, and that I have a meeting or I'll have to work on this or that, and
Yeah.
I'll have that flexibility. So I completely relate, and I think that that's amazing that that the program that you got into just kind of was something that you decided to take, a chance on, and that you just wanted to commit to that and see where it took you. And now it's, put you on this path for creating your own business. I think that's amazing. And even the part that you share about you and your coworker talking about, oh, what could we do as a business? Like, this would be good. Like, I feel like I've had so many of those types of conversations with people, but the actual ability for somebody to do that is so slim, and it's so unlikely that somebody's actually going to take one of those kind of conversations and actually make it come to life and have it actually become something. And I think that's amazing that you've done that. I think that's very inspiring.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I will say, I 110% believe that it was my children that gave me that confidence, because the way I felt about it, I was like, even if I fall flat on my face, I have these two amazing boys and my husband that love me. And, no matter what, like, that can't be taken away. So let's give this a try. Now, I will admit, I did not tag my face or my name to the business for 6 months. I was quietly building and promoting without actually using my face, because there's a huge element of fear. I mean, you're attaching yourself to now your work, and there's always that risk. I mean, every friend that you've seen that has, sold something or started something, support them, because it's so scary, even just to take that action. And yeah, it took me a solid 6 months. And I will say this, like, as a piece of advice, is I still don't advertise really to my friends, and because I keep them very separate. I would never want my friends to feel like they have to come in and get the treatments, or they have to do X, Y, and Z. I really try to keep the two separate. And I think sometimes what I see is, it's one thing to support your friends at the beginning and like and share and just be supportive to them in person. Be like, you know what, like, there's nothing that will give you the tingles and the goosies by saying, good for you, like, that takes balls, like, really good for you. But please don't rely on them as your source of income, because I think that's where you start to see friendships. They're like, I don't want to keep seeing on Facebook, every other day, or keep getting text messages like, hey, you want to put an order in? That's how you lose friendships. And I'm 5 years into this business. You need those friendships. You need them for when you're having your tough days. You need those to be completely separate, and you don't want them to be sort of over it or feel like they've heard too much. So that's just one piece of advice that I would give to anyone starting out, is have them offer support emotionally, but make sure you're not relying on them financially.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. I think that's an amazing tip. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't really talk about or hear about, because, often you're told to encourage your family and your friends to support you and share and get the word out. And I completely relate to you there, because, for me, starting this podcast, I was, I did share with family and friends, but I didn't share it very widely, because I didn't want, like you said, I didn't want them to feel that they had to, share the podcast, or that they had to listen to my episodes, and whatnot. And I had a couple friends, later on say to me, oh, I haven't listened to your episode for 2 weeks, but I'm getting to it. And I just told them, I was like, there's no obligation for you to listen. And I don't want you to feel like you're a bad friend if you don't. You're a great friend. And this isn't something, this is something that I want to do. It doesn't mean you have to also be the one to engage with it, or to talk about it, or listen to every single episode. I have, no hard feelings. And I think that, like you said, takes a lot of pressure off of it and allows you to maintain those friendships outside of work. And it's just like, if I was to continue and you were to continue to having your 9 to 5 type of job, when you go to hang out with your friends, you don't want to talk about your work. You want to just hang out. And it's the same thing when you have your own business. So I really appreciate that tip that you share. And I think it's so true.
Yeah, it's, and it's all a learning curve. And I don't know what it was, but something at the very beginning of all of this, I just thought, because my children were then approaching, preschool age, I was like, I wasn't going to even mix that with business. So like my children's friends, parents, are not my clients, and, are not my customers. If they happen to buy something like one of my kits or want a treatment, I would actually send them to one of the technicians for a treatment, because if we're going to be in the same school system, and our school all sticks together, elementary, middle, and high school, I don't want to do their teeth in grade 1. And maybe they weren't like, I don't know, like everyone loves the treatment, but if something, wasn't amazing for them, I don't want them to hold on to that for 11 years, and have that. So I was like, I made the decision early on, because I also used to I added on eyelashes and microblading. And I was like, could you imagine if they hated their eyebrows and you have to go, through the school system? So I just made that decision really early on that I was going to keep it separate. And it's so tough to build a business when you don't have a built-in community of support. So I really had to look for outside resources. Now, I love my family, but we have a very, very small amount of family here in Canada. I don't have cousins, I don't have aunts and uncles, I don't have grandma and grandpas who are, were kind of putting the word out for me. So it was all kind of self-made. And I think that's why it took a little bit longer. It was a slow growth. And I would see other businesses start up around the same time, and they just took off. And like maybe they were doing something differently with marketing, but some of them, it was because they had like this local community support that was really behind them and really propelled them. So both ways are fine to do. Both ways are great. Mine was just a different way because I never felt like I don't have that family, a large backing. I didn't go to high school in the city that I live in, so I don't have, high school friends there kind of helping. So it was a different way of doing it. But I knew that to really use the fact that I came from the dental industry was going to be my biggest asset. If I didn't have that built-in support system, I was going to use that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. That you start without having, a built-in community, like you said. And I think that always is harder because you have to figure out where to go and who to, to contact and how to, build your brand and your business. And I think that it's amazing. And actually yesterday, one of my friends, they posted a Instagram page, and and it was a comparison of teeth whitening. And they were like, this is amazing. This product is so good. And then obviously I went on because I was like, is it your product? And it was your product. So it was one of your technicians. And I saw the box and it was like, beautiful, bright smile. And I was like, this is amazing that like, this is someone that, has no affiliation to you, and is promoting your product through one of your technicians. And I thought that was amazing because I knew that you were going to be on today, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. It's just full circle of how I get to hear about your business and your brand through someone that, it's not necessarily in your community.
honestly, like nothing gives me tingles more, like in a business sense, than when those things happen. When it's someone that I don't know and I feel like they're not just saying it to be nice or whatever. It's it's a really great feeling, and I honestly can say like I put 110% of myself into the business and into the brand to the point where you get a little burnt out. You get a little like when you're wearing the different hats of everything, you do get a little fatigued. And it's like one of those messages or one of those comments will help you. It will propel you and keep you going. So I always appreciate those. I also appreciate constructive criticism because that makes the brand better. I will follow this into because I I do feel passionate about helping others too, especially those that feel like they don't have a community backing and they want to start something. And maybe they think I'm not smart enough or I didn't take the classes. I never took a business class. I never took a marketing class. It's amazing how much you will learn as you go, and to always just try, just try whatever you're thinking that you want to do. You are going to have one friend in your circle that you know will be a good listening person, and that's what my dental friend was, who will help support you in that way. It only takes one person. And my other piece of advice of what I've always wanted to tell everyone is when I first started this, my husband, he's like, take a personality test. He's like, figure out what your personality fully is. So I took this test, and my personality came up where 5% of women have this personality, like the traits that I have. So that told me right away where my weaknesses fell, and find someone that can complement you in what your strengths are. So I know mine is um, speaking, educating, and being creative with ideas. My flip side is probably my organization isn't there, and anything to do with like accounting things. So luckily my husband's an accountant and he's extremely organized. So we always knew that we were complete opposites. So I was fortunate enough to have my piece living in my house that could balance me. So that would be a really big piece of advice, is to find out who you are, because you might be surprised. I was surprised with what came up with mine, and it then made so much sense of why I am the way I am. And it was so funny because in my personality traits is that I should never be an assistant to anyone. And I was a dental assistant for so long, and I love my job. But when I went from doing creative stuff of making new teeth and doing that to just doing like fillings and suctioning, I was bored. And it's like I should never be an assistant. And it was always like I'm creative and I should always be making my own path. And I think it does kind of allow you to see who you are. Whereas if you find that you're more organized and you're more like you'll put systems in place, maybe you need to find someone that has that creative flair for your marketing, or has the flair of like putting videos together for you. So that is something else I learned early on, is find your counterpart. Doesn't have to be a spouse. You could hire someone, or it could be a friend, and try and balance the personality out so that you have the complete package.
Yeah, I think I think that's a great tip, and it's so important. And so many times early on in my career, I was told to take these personality tests for work, for the performance plans and whatnot. And I kept thinking these are, I didn't like them because they were so long. But then now, as I just did one recently, I just did the Enneagram.
Okay, yeah.
Personality type, yeah. And then when I looked at it and I figured out my personality type, and then there's this whole world around it of how you can support yourself in that type of personality, I was amazed, because I was like, wow, that you can actually learn about this and apply, and then you can actually be strategic in the way you approach things. And like you said, find someone that's a counterbalance to you, or it helps you identify where your weaknesses are and where you need to build a bit on your strengths, or things that you may not be great at but you would want to build on. And for me, it's just I think for me, it's just the creative side of things, like the graphics and that creative stuff. that to me is just so, I'm more of a big picture thinking person, but I also then like the minute details in the organization. But if you want me to be creative of deciding what color looks best, I don't even know where to start. Everything looks fine to me. I'm not a very creative
Yeah.
person like that. And I think that's where I need someone to balance me on that piece of it, because yeah, it's really important to be able to do that. And I think that's key. And I love that your husband shared that. And I don't do budgeting either or finance stuff, and my husband does all of that. And I think that's always amazing that running numbers and stuff. But to me, I feel the same. I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying when you say all these numbers.
I get so confused. I was like, just keep me out of jail. Like, pay my taxes, keep me out of jail, and I don't know, let me know if I'm making money. But like, going back to being creative, I mean, sometimes though I have to catch myself because I'll think of an idea and I want to put it out right away. Like, I'm so stoked about this that I just want to like throw it out and like have, everyone see it. And sometimes you do need to have a plan and a thought process. And you know, something like kind of going in that direction is, I think sometimes people see an Instagram page or they see a website, and they hear a story and they're like, that looks easy. Like, how come it's so hard for me? Nothing about this has been easy. Like, nothing at all. I have tripped. I have made mistakes. I still make mistakes. It's just like, no one's a perfect parent. No one is a perfect business owner. It's just, obviously we don't try and show our mistakes out there. But they are happening. And with my technicians who I've trained, I actually let them know the mistakes that I've made because they have their own businesses too. So I don't want them to feel like, everything has to be perfect all the time. So I try to always keep it real with them, but there's only so much the public wants to know what's real. Like they want to, they want to see the pretty Instagram pages and hear the information. So it's a real balance, but I'm treating, speaking with you as more like people who might be, thinking about going into a business of how did you do that, right? And
Yeah.
there's you make lots of mistakes, you do hiccups, and then the world can see you do these missteps, right? It's just how you recover from them. And I've divorced my business 100 times, and it never lasts more than 5 hours. But it happens. So if you think that all these other businesses are just flourishing and taking off and everything is amazing, I bet there has been struggles behind the scenes. Just like a marriage, nothing is ever perfect 100% of the time.
Yeah, yeah, and I completely agree. And I always say that, and I heard this quote kind of a couple months before I started this podcast, and it said, you want to work a couple years in a way that a lot of people won't. So it's really hard, it's really tough, it's day and night, there's really no stop. But you do that because then you want to live in a way that most people won't for the rest of your life. And I thought, and I relate to you in being, the parent, because right now I feel like I just don't have enough time to spend quality time with my daughter. And I get like a certain, a few hours in a day to do that. And I feel like, I should give her more of my time, more of my energy right now. But at the same time, I always have to remind myself that, I'm making these sacrifices right now because in a few years, then I will have all the time in the world to be with her and spend time with her and focus everything on her, because I'm building this so I can create that flexibility for our family. And so you do share a lot about, the hard times and like in the challenges that you had. So how did you overcome that? What were some of your ways of checking back in with yourself and motivating yourself and taking care of yourself and making sure that you were able to continue despite the burnout and feeling overwhelmed and all the work that really goes into starting a business?
Yeah, this is a big one, and it's been kind of a big deal in my business. It's so weird because like the reason that you start a business is to spend more time with your family and give them opportunities that maybe you can offer otherwise. But finding that balance between working and being with your family and being present with your family is totally different. and I found it really challenging. We have a Google picture thing in our kitchen, and the slides show all the things that we've done over the years. And I'm like, okay, I was there. I know I was present, but I'm looking at me, like I'm looking at my face, and I can see the stress and the unhealthiness actually happen before my eyes. I can see when I started the business, I was in optimal health. I was feeling great. I had never been more fit in my life, and I can see it slowly fade away because something has to give. Um, and so I think I was about 2.5 years into the business, and I had like a full breakdown. It was over a summer, and it was just the stress of like, I'm trying to build something. I felt like I was responsible for people because I was training them at that point. My children were still not full-time school age, so I still had them part-time at home during the daytime. I wasn't feeling great about myself. I was diagnosed with pre-diabetes. I had major stomach issues. My diet was so unhealthy because I was like eating really late at night after I was finished work seeing clients. And I remember one time, I think the breaking point is I would go out to teeth whitening parties where I would throw the party at the people's homes and do their teeth there. There'd be like, between 5 to 10 people. And it was a great idea because no one else was really doing it. But this one girl had all of her friends over, and they were all just chatting about, the plans they had for the summer and the TV shows, and they were all on a group text. And I thought, I'm like, when was the last time I saw my friends? And if I even threw a party like this, who would I even invite at this point? Because I felt so disconnected to them. And that was my breaking point. And I decided to take the rest of the summer off and reconnect with my friends and reconnect fully with my family and be present and work on my health, which still isn't perfect, but it's getting better because self-care is important. And that was my self-care at that moment. And so that was my first burnout. That was my first realization that money is not everything. And sometimes growing a business is more of an ego thing. So you have to check both of those things. And I always have a list of what's most important in my life. And I go back to, okay, is number one and number two and number three being taken care of? Because money comes after all three of those things, which would be, family and your friends and your health. And they weren't being taken care of. So I checked myself, went back to that. I thought, okay, how do I restructure the business so I'm not feeling burnout? I restructured it. And then another 2.5 years later, so that would be January of this year, another burnout. But that's because the business was changing. There's outside factors that were happening. So I felt like kids were being taken care of, husband got attention, I'm seeing my friends. All those things were doing great. But now what was happening is I was getting outside factors affecting the business because, I built something that I think was unique. Like I haven't seen it done quite this way before. So everything was sort of like, I tested it. Did it work? Yes. Okay, let's go in this direction. And when something works, other people are going to see that it works and they're going to do it themselves. So now I have that now coming down on me of like, well, that person's now doing this and this person's now doing this. Like I need to now restructure and refocus again. And it takes a toll on you because having a business, there's so much uncertainty. You don't know like what's going to happen month to month, basically. Unless you're under a contract with something, you have zero clue. You have zero say. All you can do is put your best foot forward and basically see what happens. And I was just starting to really feel that. And, I get messages 24/7, whether it's through email, text, phone, Instagram, or Facebook. So it just all felt like so much. And I felt myself breaking down again. So that self-care, what did I do? We had already booked a mini 5-day getaway, just my husband and I. I went on it. I literally didn't talk about business until day 4. I couldn't. Like I just needed to like purge everything from my mind and relax. And then we talked about it on the very last day. And he's the best person that I can talk to about all of this stuff. And that was how I kind of took care of that. It was just needing to let my mind rest and not make quick decisions about things, and then make really good ones. And then COVID happened, and it forced a complete slowdown of one side of the business, and it allowed me to focus on my retail line, which I've been putting on the back burner for a long time because I was so focused on the academy and helping the technicians, that all of a sudden these opportunities were coming up with the kit. And in my gut, it felt right, it felt good, and I was able to kind of see where that was going until we get back to normal post COVID, which still hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you always have to like check yourself and make sure your top 3 things on your list are ticking, because if they're not good, there's no money in the world and no amount of accomplishments and achievements that are going to override your top 3 things ever. And that is something I've learned. And it's actually a really good feeling because I'm not financially motivated. And I feel like when your biggest passion about your business is the financial side, you're heading towards not a great path.
Yeah, I completely agree. Being clear on what your desires are and what are most important to you is it's key. And also going back to your why, because like before you start a business, you always figure out why you want to do this in the first place, right? And it seems like for the both of us, it's our children or my child, and it's just spending more time, flexibility, all of that, and creating a company where you can be yourself and you can do what brings you the most passion. And that never has to do with money. I think that if you go into building a business with a desire of, I need more money or I want more money, that's, like you said, it's just a recipe for disaster. And it's not going to get you to be happier. It's not going to have you be more fulfilled. It's going to cause sacrifices and suffering in areas of your life that you'll realize after the fact are non-negotiables for you. And I think health and your family and your friends is so important, and especially having that downtime just to, relax and not think about your business, and not, think about how you're going to move forward, but just have some time to hang out and just relax and do some self-care, I think is key. So I think that's amazing that you were able to realize that and pivot and re-strategize and work around that. And the fact that you did that within 2 years, I think is amazing. I've known some people actually that it took them 10 years or 15 years or a divorce later, to figure that out, that they should focus more. And I was actually reading a while ago, I was reading Jim Treliving, who's the founder of Boston Pizza, or the owner of Boston Pizza. His biography, and he has a silent business partner who was an accountant that he had connected with just the beginning of his time, when he started Boston Pizza or took it over from another family. And he ended up having him come on and be a business partner with him. And in his book, he talks about how his first marriage failed because he ended up putting so much time and effort and energy that he just didn't give his wife enough attention. He didn't even give her the benefit of the doubt most of the time, and like just didn't give her much of him. That he ended up giving all of himself to his business and not to his family. And then he was saying in the book how he was amazed that his business partner and his wife were still together after 40 years. He said that to me is amazing because the number of people that he knew that were running businesses, that had started businesses with a partner, they no longer had that partner. They were either divorced or they had separated and broken up, but they couldn't sustain that marriage because of how much effort they put into their business. And he was celebrating his business partner because he said that is such a a unique thing. It's such a unicorn thing to happen in business where you're still married to the person that you started with. And to me, when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. Like, does this mean my husband and I would get a divorce if I started in business? And like, why? And I think that you touched on that, and that's really important.
I mean, my husband, he is my best friend. We're polar opposites. Like, I think when we first got together, it was kind of like, what? Because he's So like he's more quiet, and yeah, like he's an accountant, whatever you think an accountant is, but he's also really fun. But any idea I have, so that's like, I'm the creative side of things, of ideas and doing it. I run by him. I'm like, what do you think of this? And he's good. Jeff, my husband, is successful in his own right, and so he's very confident in himself. He's done extremely well in his position, and so I don't think he ever feels like competitive with me in any way. He's my cheerleader. Like, he's really happy, and he just didn't love the fact when he saw like my spark dimming, because either people were taking it away or I was just running myself ragged. Um, so as for the whole like being a team, I feel like we are a good team. He's my sounding board when I'm starting to go into a tizzy, which happens. He brings me down to earth and makes me feel like all of this could go away tomorrow. It's okay. Like, it's okay. Like, don't worry about it. Even from the beginning, it's I don't want him to get mad at me, but he wasn't like 110% supportive when I started this. So I remember like we were just sat there chatting, and I'm like, what if I started like a thrift shop? Because I love consignment shopping. I'm like, what if I started that? Oh, I know, I'm gonna become an influencer. I'm gonna do that. And then I was like, okay, well, what about this teeth whitening thing? And he's like, of your 3 ideas, I hate that one the least. Like that is like him to a T. He's blunt, and he's just like, go with that one. You can use your dental, just go with it. And I think he just wanted to make sure that I was happy with the path that I'm choosing, and that I was feeling fulfilled, and I wasn't, I think maybe I was suffering from some depression. I love my babies, I love my children, but being in the house day in, day out, and we didn't live in a cul-de-sac, I didn't live in a community, I was feeling very isolated. So I think he was at the very least just hoping that I got out there and felt good about myself, and was proud if I made it into a little business. He tells me all the time, he's like, I can't even believe what you've done, like, good for you. But I say, well, it's also because of you. So I always thank him. I always bring him into it. No one ever sees his face. He's not a part of it at all. He just runs, the back end of the book, but he is a very big part of the brand, and, the decisions, the things that I put out there, I run through him, and I do need him. I would say, if marriages do end because of a business thing, I could see it where sometimes where, if the business person, the entrepreneur, starts to outshine the other partner. Maybe that balance is thrown off. Maybe it is an ego thing. Maybe, that guy wants to make sure they're earning all the money, and they want to be making the decisions. I don't know. I just feel very lucky that I have someone where, even if I wasn't working at all, he believes like his money is my money too, and it all goes into a joint account, nothing separate, and that's how we've always been. So if miracles happened, and this brand was doing like amazingly well, he's like, yeah, I'd retire tomorrow. Like, I was, like, I'd be so happy for you. It wouldn't be a case of, he would still want to be the man at work type of thing.
Yeah, I think that is important to say that, making sure that you have a strong foundation is definitely important. And checking your ego, I think, is important too. And I don't really know exactly what Jim Treliving was alluding to, but I definitely can see, the part where he talks about dedicating 100% of yourself, and then not having any time for your partner, or essentially changing as a person as you go through your business, which totally happens. But unless you engage, like you said, engaging your partner and having them there, bouncing on them, making some dedicated time for your partner, I think it's key as well. And I love that you say that he didn't, of the 3 ideas, this is the one he didn't like. He didn't like the least.
Hated the least.
Totally like my husband. And when I said I wanted to do this podcast, he was kind of, he was supportive, totally, but he was a little like skeptical. And then when I started, taking a lot more time to do this and like spending more of my after my full-time job time doing this work, he kind of was like, he made a comment once where he goes, I said that, oh, I don't have much downtime because I'm doing so much stuff. And he's like, oh, well, the stuff you're doing is just your hobby. And I was like, my hobby? I was like, it's not my hobby. And it was funny because the same day I listened to the podcast episode with Kat and Nat from Mom Truth. And they talked about that, how their husbands were not supportive of them, would call their podcast and their brand a hobby as well. And all this and that, and then they made the joke like, yeah, but they're not complaining now that we purchased them brand new cars, So I had my husband.
Yeah.
I had my husband.
Well, I get it. I think though sometimes it's out of fear because like they don't want to see us fail. Like they want it to be a success and it's fear based. My parents, like I think up until last year, didn't even tell people what I was doing because I think it's also like a British thing, but they were like it's fine if it's successful, they'll tell them, but if it fails, I think they'd be more devastated than me because they'd be like, oh, like, we can't be attached to that type of thing. But like 100%. But at the beginning, he genuinely just wanted me to be happy in whatever I was doing. And I'm gonna be completely honest. I've had moments of running this business where I'm like, I need to tap out. I'm like, can you get me a job where he works? He works for a Windows company. Let me like sell Windows. And he's just like, no, like, no, you're not doing that. He's like, because in 3 weeks you would regret it. And you were meant to do this. And he's like, just keep on building it. Just take breaks, like, so if I didn't have him, I would, I don't know where I would be. I don't know, but he's fantastic. He grounds me and brings me back to earth. And I can only hope that everyone trying to start a business or run a business has a person in their life that is like that, whether it's their mom, their dad, a sister, brother. It doesn't have to be someone living in your house. My sister has been incredibly supportive too. A way to be supportive, she shares everything on Facebook. She's always sharing and, letting her friends know what I'm up to and talks about it. That's being supportive. It doesn't have to be, again, like buying everything, but I totally I get it. I totally get it. And it's hard. And I had something recently happen within my business, which to me was like, it was devastating. And then I told, obviously my husband and my family and the reactions that you get when something happens, because it's not like you're working at a regular job. You're not like, I don't say regular job. You're not working a job like a vice principal and you have a bad day and sometimes you can just leave it at work. I feel like I can never leave it. And I've always told this story because I also make it a public service announcement, but I used a picture from Pinterest last summer. I got super lazy. I was camping, so I used a picture. It was a cute one. And I put it on my Instagram page and it was just like, oh, brighten your smile type of thing. And again, not having a business or marketing background, I never went to a class where I don't know all the rules. 6 months later, in January of this year, I get a letter from a lawyer, like I'm being sued. So can you imagine, like in a job that you go to, so say I was still a certified dental assistant, I'm never going to walk to the mailbox and open a letter like that. Yeah. Like that was just, it knocks you sideways. It feels like a personal attack. It was something that felt like it was an innocent mistake.
Yeah.
But when you run your own business, sometimes innocent mistakes are going to cost you. Whereas if you make an innocent mistake at your job, it's not going to cost you personally, and you don't have to hire a lawyer and go through that whole rigmarole. I mean, I never ever use a Pinterest picture ever. Anyone. That is my PSA. If I can save anyone from that, because even just to have that emotional strain on me while I was going through the process, it's not like you can just wrap it up in a couple of days. It takes a little while for everything to go back and forth. The moment that I wrapped that up, I felt like a million times better, but I also felt like I had been almost like targeted almost, like I felt like it was like a personal attack, even though it wasn't. I felt like I had been attacked, and that carries you through your days, and you don't necessarily get that when you go to a job. So rounding it out again to support, to have a support system to lift you and make you feel like you're still, a really good person that just made an innocent mistake. That's something that you definitely need. But again, bad things happen. I'm not gonna like scream it from the rooftops that these bad things happen, because I also don't want to scare people away from starting a business. It's just I hope that I can just throw a few tidbits to make you more aware of, these are the really great things and these are the not so great things. But I still recommend to pave your own way and create your own path.
Yeah, and I think you're a perfect example of someone that's been through these challenges and that continues to persevere and build their business. And like you said, it's not always, amazing and incredible. There are hard days and there are very challenging experiences, but it's all about how you maintain your own mindset and how you take care of yourself first and how you're able to persevere and build the resilience to handle those types of challenges. And I think that you've done a great job of that and sharing your story. Yeah, so I'm totally inspired by you because I love that you said you've tried to divorce your business so many times and you tried to get a job with your husband. And I think that that's amazing because it's just the trajectory of what it's like to have your own business. And I think, like you said, there's no real off button. Like you can't just walk away from your business at the end of the day. It is something that's ongoing and you are the one, building this and you're responsible for what you're building and your brand and your products and everything. And I think that the biggest key, I think, and as you mentioned, is to making sure you surround yourself by a support network that will help you get through all the good days and the bad days, but also taking and being very clear on what you need to take care of yourself and your mindset. But at the end of the day, pursuing this passion of yours and your purpose in building this brand is to give yourself that flexibility and the ability to be with your family and take care of yourself and have that time. And I think that that is so important. And actually, yesterday I was just talking to a friend and we were talking about this, and I said, he's going for an interview and he's in between two jobs, and one job is full time in the office, and one job's remote, but it's the pay gap is significant. And I said, the one that's remote, I said, it does make less money, but you have the value of time, and that is worth so much because you don't have the commute. You get to spend time with your kids, whenever you want. And to me, time is so much more valuable than money, than anything, because time allows you to, like you said, spend time with your family, your friends, your kids, spend time on your health and taking care of yourself. It's so important, and I think that that's key. So thank you so
Yeah,
much for
yeah. YOLO, that's my thing.
yeah.
Only live once, so just pursue it. Just pursue whatever you want to do because you don't want to ever regret anything. And just just go for it. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay because you tried. So what? Like it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so true. You only live once, so just go for it. And if anything, it doesn't work out, like you said, just get a job back where you were, or in another world, there's a ton of employers looking for people all the time. But just give it a shot. You never know what'll happen when you do. So thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been very inspiring to hear how you took this chance on yourself and committed to yourself and continue to do that every day. And you've built a successful business, and that it's really out there. And I think that it's awesome. And I love the stories that you share. I love the images of how well this product is working for people. And I think it's so inspiring. And I definitely need to order my kit soon.
We can
And
work something out.
yeah. Okay, awesome. So I will share Emma's business Instagram account, Beautiful Bright Smile, as well as her website for you to check out. And if you have any questions, you can connect with her on her Instagram, or you can send me a message and I'll connect the both of you together. All right. So thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me and congratulations to you for starting this. And I want to say a thank you to the Van City Business Aid because they were the ones to connect us. And that's really amazing and a great resource.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, we should mention Van City Business Babes and the Business Babes Collective because, like Emma mentioned, we don't have backgrounds in business and marketing, and there's just, there are so many resources out there, and we both decided to take the Action Takers Club with the Business Babes Collective and Van City Business Babes. And that's how we met, and we're building this community around ourselves, and we're supporting each other. So I do really appreciate Emma for joining me today. And yeah, and I'll link also the Business Babes Collective on Instagram and on the blog as well for you to check out. All right, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the end of this episode, and I hope that you were inspired by the story of Emma and how she built her business Beautiful Bright Smiles. And I hope that you're encouraged by what she said about committing to yourself and staying true to yourself and knowing clearly what's most important to you, and always making sure that you always go back to that, and that you make sure that those things are taken care of. And with that, if you could like, subscribe, and share us on all of your social media accounts, as well as check us out on YouTube and subscribe to us and be notified every time that we release an episode, that would be amazing. And remember, you have the ability to catalyze your life from ordinary to extraordinary, and it all starts with you. So we'll see you next week. Bye.